Get off my plane.
I fucking knew it.
I'm Liam, this is Rob, and after covering the never-ending story, we take a look back at our second Wolfgang Peterson movie of 2024 with 1997's often brilliant, occasionally ridiculous, but always fun Air Force One. With Harrison Ford arguably playing the greatest president of all time, Gary Oldman spitting his way through a wonderfully villainous role, and Xander Berkeley playing Gibbs. This is the quintessential 90s political action thriller with just a dollop of Team America thrown in for good measure. Rob, I love this movie growing up. I still love it now, but man, I forgot just how dumb this movie gets towards the end.
Yeah, it has its issues towards the end. I mean, the visual effects do have their issues and things like I love how you third build Xander Berkeley because one of my notes was nobody is hiring this obvious sociopath for the Secret Service. Wait, but you want to protect the president, but you're Xander Berkeley, yeah? You're obviously going to turn on him.
Yeah,
No.
well, the
Yeah,
thing is,
like, you seriously, you're gonna on the first chance you get, you're going to turn on the president. No, I'm not. You're Xander Berkeley. Of course you are.
the only other the other side of that coin is, and I don't want to like diss the actor, but he's so forgettable that honest to God, I was like, I've seen this film before, and I just forgot he like not only that he was in it, but that he had double crossed the president. I was just like, man, Gary Oldman's character dies much earlier than
And
I
you thought,
thought.
yeah,
And then there are very few movies where the main villain dies, and then there's like 20 minutes left. And honestly, he died. And I looked, I was like, this is like 20 minutes. I was like, oh yeah, Xander Berkeley's still fucking knocking around. He would be amazing on The Traitors. I'm not sure if our US listeners get that reference, if they get The Traitors, but like he's just the guy who just sits in the background and then all of a sudden he's won the show. But the only problem is he falls into the background so much that by the end of the film, after Gary Oldman is being killed and you've had the big moment, they tried to make it a big deal when we keep on him Xander Berkeley when Gibbs dies and he's there. It's one of the like visually poorer moments in the film when you can see him on the side of the plane as it's going down, and you're just like, I just don't care. I just don't give a fuck about Gibbs.
love
The
it. Like his
movie
cut.
is, I would go as far to say it's brilliant until the moment Gary Oldman dies, and then it turns into Team America for 20 minutes. And I was amazed going back to it. I was like, man, this film totally goes off the rails in the last 20 minutes,
His
right
come
down
to
to the zip wires where they look like puppets flying across.
his come to Jesus death scene at the end, where he's just in the middle of the doorway as it's about to hit the water, and you see
Mm-hmm.
him bounce off the water as he crashes. They couldn't have
Oh,
zoomed in
it's
him.
right.
Like
And when the
his
weirdest
his
thing is,
his
right?
ratio, his proportions with him in the doorway were so totally out of whack. It was just we need to make him a little bit larger than the plane, just so you can clearly see him as the plane crashes. And you're right. After
Yeah.
Gary Oldman got killed, you were like, "Well, what the fuck is wrong with the rest of this film?" It,
Yeah, it's weird. And
you know,
the
it
oddest thing
seemed as
is,
though
right,
that
you
whole
suddenly
zip
have to
line scene.
get,
Sorry, mate, that whole
yeah,
zip line
no,
scene
no.
gave me cliffhanger vibes. Like where they're zip
Yeah,
lining
yeah.
into the plane and everything, and it was just so funny. It was ridiculous.
It just doesn't look great. Like the film is patently quite ridiculous. I mean, it's Die Hard on a plane. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll get to that in a moment. But the ending is like they don't know quite what to do with like they have this big sequence with Gary Oldman. They're like, fuck, we still have to have the whole plane landing, and then they kind of push the emphasis onto Gibbs, and you forget that Gibbs, of course, you've known from pretty early in the film that he's double crossed the president, but you never ever know why.
No,
I was like, do we ever learn what his like intentions or his motivations are? No, like Wolfgang Peterson confirmed after the fact that Gibbs was a former CIA agent who basically lost a lot at the end of the Cold War and thus became angry with the US government and wanted revenge. Well, that's great, Wolfgang. That is never, ever made clear in this film at all. It's just like, why the fuck is Gibbs got this beef with the president? Like, and he doesn't even look like at least the other guys. They like you mentioned the fact that you wouldn't let him on the plane or you wouldn't let him work for the president. I would never let Gary Oldman and his cronies on Air Force One with that facial hair.
it is.
There's got to be a test.
I mean, Gary Oldman, you're probably going to let him on, but there is definitely one guy in his crew you're not letting
No
on.
way. I'm not doing it with that goatee. I'm not. I'm not letting him on.
You're not letting Andrew Divoff on the plane. Like you
No
look at the
way.
guy and you go, you see him. Well, he's clearly evil. What do you mean? Look at
Clearly.
his smile. He's clearly evil. He's clearly going to take over the plane.
I would
Like,
say the same with Gary Oldman personally. I
I don't
think
know
with
about
that
Gary
goatee,
Oldman.
like you are going out of your way to look a villain, and most of them do. The only dude who doesn't is the first guy who gets killed by Harrison Ford, who might as well be wearing a red jumper. Everything about his like he doesn't look Russian, he doesn't sound Russian. Everything about him says you're going to be the first one to die in this film.
Was
You know
he?
when you just like as soon as you see him, you're just like, oh, he's gonna die. Like he's
He
not gonna
was the
have any
one as
lines.
well
He's
who they
just gonna
gave a
die.
post backstory to, wasn't it? Like you don't know anything about this guy. He's just the guy that's getting fit. Like you said, he's red shirt guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
all
yeah.
of a sudden, Gary Oldman goes, "We fought together for 5 years in Afghanistan. He was my brother." Like that dude?
Was he? Yeah, not Gibbs. Like, why
No.
didn't you make that about Gibbs? But then he can't say about Gibbs because he's dead by the time Gibbs's big moment comes. It's strange, but we've gone straight to the negative of this film. And make no mistake, the last 20 minutes of this film are pretty
Okay.
bad.
Before we go into
Most
the
of the film's still
positives,
pretty good. Yeah,
before we
yeah.
go into the positives, you picked this film for one reason and one reason only, and I don't care what you say. It was
Mhm.
because I couldn't say Kazakhstan, wasn't it? And you were hoping that for the entire thing, I would say the general of Kazakhstan again.
Dude, honestly, my third note is just Kazakhstan with a big exclamation mark next to it. I was like, is Rob going to fuck this? Surely he's learned by now how to say Kazakhstan. Although in this film, I don't think they were filming in Kazakhstan at all. I think
Nope.
they've chosen that country because they're just like, well, it's former Eastern Bloc, maybe. I don't know. That whole sequence doesn't really land for me. In fact, the opening is the other slightly dodgy part of this film. It goes very Call of Duty Warzone when they're like
Yes.
parachuting in and he's shooting guys, and I'm like, it doesn't really fit the rest of the film, and it doesn't look quite as good. Because you mentioned the special effects. I think for a film from 1997, most of the stuff with the plane, sans Gibbs's death, actually looks pretty good and holds it for the
No,
most
see,
part.
I thought everything else looked all right. All the practical effects,
Mhm,
the Call of Duty scene at the beginning, everything like that, I thought looked great. But
mhm.
anything to do with the plane barrel rolling or crashing or anything like that looked like it was created on Windows 95. It had certain issues. And
In
I've
fairness,
not
I
got a problem
probably
with it. I
shouldn't have
mean, we
watched
look at
that
these films,
clip.
we take these films for what they are this day and age. I mean, this film is now what, nearly 30 years old.
Mhm, mhm.
So it is what it is. And it
That's
doesn't
rough,
take,
man.
I know, it doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the film.
Well,
My
I'd say the
question,
weirdest thing with this film, it's just hard to find it nowadays. Because if you type in Air Force One, I was like,
okay,
I wonder what's going to come into Google. Will it be, the movie, or will it be actually Air Force One? No, it's the fucking trainer. It's the trainer's the first thing that comes up. That's
so
that's Nike's dominance.
I didn't get the trainer. I was getting this random Air Force One down B movie that was released last year.
Oh my God. It's not Air
Yeah,
Force One with Harrison Ford. And as we already mentioned, if nothing else, it should be this because for my money, I think this is the best interpretation of the American president on screen. And I think he's actually the exact president that the United States needs now. Because I was like, I wonder if this guy's like Republican or Democrat. So he's described as a Republican Bill Clinton, but without all the weird sex stuff. But it's like arguably
the
that's what it
weird
needs.
sex
He's a
stuff.
Republican, but he's more moderate. You need someone in the middle. And when he gives that speech in Russia, I'm like, dude, man, I am on fucking board. Like, in fairness, I was looking up the best cinematic presidents, and there aren't actually that many to choose from. So Michael Douglas in the aptly named The American President, the Rob Reiner film from 1995, I think it was. There's Bill Pullman in Independence Day, who's up for both best and worst president. He gave that kind of performance where he might have simultaneously been up for an Oscar and a Razzie in the same year. It's
Yeah,
just that kind
yeah.
of performance. I actually quite like Jack Nicholson in Mars Attacks. There's Morgan Freeman in Deep Impact. But I think the two that really stood out, and they're not going to count here because they're for the TV rather than for movies, are Michael Sheen, Martin Sheen in The West Wing, and Dennis Haysbert in as David Palmer in 24. Those two are the ones I really remember, but they're TV. So for my money, in terms of like on the big screen, it might actually be Harrison Ford. This might be the best president we ever got.
Not not Rod Scheider. Was it Rod Scheider? Who was the guy from Sequest DSV? That was Rod Scheider, wasn't it?
I'm just thinking of Rob Schneider now. I'm like, if there
Yeah.
is a movie where Rob
I
Schneider
love,
is playing the
sorry,
American president, that isn't the answer.
I love how I went Sequest DSV. Who was the main guy from Jaws?
Um, Rob Scheider,
Rod Scheider.
yeah. Sorry, I've got
Roy Scheider.
Roy Scheider. I've just
Roy
got
Scheider.
Rob
I
Schneider.
remember a
I
film.
couldn't get Rob Schneider out of my head, which is a terrible
I
thing.
remember a film where he played the president and Patrick Muldoon from Starship Troopers was the Secret Service agent that had to protect him from Chinese insurgents.
And also,
And he was a
I'm just
great
going to put it
president.
right. I know I made an error there. I am 100% going to blame you. And you've already thrown yourself under the bus there. You're the only person who uses that name and goes, the guy from Deep, what was it?
Sequest DSV.
Instead of Jaws, one of the most famous movies of all time, and you go to fucking a Sequest spin-off? Get fucked, dude. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, that is peak Rob. There's no beating that. There is no beating picking Sequest over Jaws. Forget
No,
about it.
I can't come back from that. Let's move on because
Yeah,
that was brilliant. That was brilliant.
that's unbelievable. I mean, we mentioned at the top the fact that this really is, but we almost don't think of it as being Die Hard on a plane because it's got Gary Oldman, because it's got Harrison Ford. But a couple of weeks ago we did Under Siege, and we're like, well, that's Die Hard on a boat.
On a boat,
and
yeah.
then we always said it's like when we were doing the podcast, we're like, well, there was Under Siege 2, which was Die Hard on a train. Why didn't they do Die Hard on a plane? And it's just like, this is that film, although it would be a very different movie if Steven Seagal. I wouldn't even have Steven Seagal as Casey Ryback playing the president. I would do like an alternative executive decision where Harrison Ford gets killed off really early in the film, and Casey Ryback just happens to be the chef on Air Force One, and he has to kill and then at the end of the film, I know he kills Glenn Close and becomes the president himself, because Casey Ryback. There's no way he's putting up with a woman president. There's just no fucking way. So I don't want to say this is the unofficial Under Siege 3 treatment, but it is Die Hard on a plane. It really is.
Do you think as well there's way too many people on that plane?
100%. And
do they really
fairness,
need
right?
that many? Because I understood you've got the house staff, you've got the pilots, you've got the Secret Service. But who are the random guys just hitching a ride home? The ones who were in the
It's
same
incredible.
area as the terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
They mean nothing. They were just cannon fodder at that point. Like, what were they there for?
I think I think you've answered your own question. I think they are just cannon fodder. I don't think narratively it makes any sense. I think they just needed a few people to die and still have enough people for that sequence where they're like, oh, we're going to kill a hostage every whatever minutes kind of thing, and for there to be enough people there for it to make sense. I still think they're pointless, but yeah, I almost think it's amazing. And to bring it back to Under Siege, one of our major problems with Under Siege was that the geography of the boat was never clear. That's why one of the reasons that Die Hard is so brilliant is that you always know where you are in Nakatomi Plaza, where the terrorists are, where McClane is. In this, they do a really good job of not only explaining the geography of the plane, but somehow making it work in a movie where, all right, it's a big plane. There's only so many places you can go. How are they not finding him in the fucking cargo hold, dude?
I forgot how much time he spends in that cargo hold. Literally,
he's there for most of the movie.
Most of his insertion into that, into the plane, is in the cargo hold. So he's doing everything from the cargo hold, and they're like, "Oh, we're not going to go down there because he could probably pick us off. So we're just going to watch the one door." Okay, but he's causing trouble.
They've got all those weapons. They could throw a smoke grenade. They could just rush him. And you're telling me there's not one we know there was at least one disposable Russian or Kazakhstani terrorist. No, sorry, it was Russian. I do apologize. Who died earlier. Maybe he should have been the guy. But yeah, I don't know why they just left him in the cargo hold. They do just enough to take your mind off it. And the fact that they should be able to really find him. Once they know he's on the plane, it should be over relatively quickly. Even if he is, a Purple Heart winner or whatever the fuck it is, they should be able to sort him out relatively quickly, but they do drag it out. And like you said, he spends so much time in the cargo hold, and it's because he doesn't really have anywhere else to go, because as soon as he comes out of the cargo hold, he almost has to be mega active from that point on. And that's what happens. You're always going towards the end game. As soon as he gets out of the cargo hold, he gets the other guys out of the room and they're off to the races and they're fighting the terrorists. But yeah, like you said, he spends an exorbitant amount of time in that goddamn cargo hold, and he does a lot of acting on his own, which he's, in fairness, very good at. Make no mistake, Elia Baskin does some of the best face acting I've ever seen in this film. When the terrorists steal Air Force One at the start,
he's the pilot, isn't he? He's the best friend.
Yeah. And his face acting in that sequence is only matched possibly by Harrison Ford's body acting while they're doing the hostage countdown. When he's like, I'm going to shoot this woman, and he keeps umming and ahhing whether he should run out and help her or whether he should hold back. He acts his ass off in the sequence, but He never quite gets to the levels of Elia Baskin, whose face is just turned up to 22 for that sequence.
You know, I wanted to ask, right, the logistics of the capsule, the escape pod. Sorry, I couldn't think of the
The
name.
bizarre Apollo capsule.
Yeah.
Is
So,
that legit?
but I couldn't tell. I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at things like Escape from New York or randomly Big Game starring Samuel L. Jackson, where he was the president as well,
Yeah.
you've got these escape pods. That's fine.
Mhm.
I'm assuming there is definitely an escape pod for the
Oh yeah,
president.
yeah,
They've
yeah,
got
yeah,
again,
yeah.
but they got him into the escape pod. They got him into the vacuum chamber for all I can think, and then they died, and the escape pod set off.
Mhm.
Where did he hide? Because
I don't know.
the bad guys clearly saw the escape pod take off and the
Mhm.
vacuum chamber sealed.
Mhm.
So
It
where
was a
did the
magic trick.
president?
It's proper magic trick stuff. Again, it's not explained. Like you say, you see him go in, you see the escape pod obviously exit the plane. You're
Yeah,
like, what? How
yeah.
did he stay on the plane? What kind of fucking Harry Houdini shit did Harrison Ford play in that sequence to stay on the plane? And I don't think anyone knows. I think they're just like, if we do the sequence quick enough, nobody's going to ask any questions until like 27 years later, or maybe on a podcast. But yeah, I don't think that sequence makes any sense, sadly.
No, it absolutely doesn't make any sense. And
Which is fine. Although I have to believe that the actual pod is the legit thing because they actually used Air Force One. I mean, Wolfgang Peterson, the director, was initially denied access to Air Force One, and then fucking Harrison Ford called the White House, and they just said, "Oh yeah, of course, Mr. Ford." And that is the thing, right? If the guy who played Han Solo and Indiana Jones calls up the White House, you're just not going to say no. It's to the point where
but
it's like,
are you going
what
to let
could
them film
Harrison
on it?
Ford ask for?
Are you going to let them film on it and view the secrets of Air Force One? Like this is how you get to the escape pod. This is how you do this. So if anyone wants
Well,
to take a look,
I think it was a mix of like they built a set and they've had access for certain shots. I don't think everything
okay,
was filmed on Air Force One, but they have given them at least a preliminary. I mean, maybe if Harrison Ford did ask, listen, can we just fucking film on Air Force One? They might be like, I mean, we definitely shouldn't, but you are Harrison Ford, dude. He's just like to have that level of power, and he's got that great voice. Like he's up there with, I'd put him on the same kind of pedestal as Optimus Prime and Jurgen Klopp, where if he asked me to do anything, I'd be like, of course, Mr. Ford. And I would salute. I don't know why, but I would
I
fucking
do
salute.
love right how you gave me shit for Roy Scheider, the Sequest thing. But
Mhm.
any chance you get, you throw a random Liverpool player or manager into this fucking
Yeah,
podcast.
but I wasn't saying like, you know, oh, Jurgen Klopp, former Lons. I can't remember who he managed before Dortmund. You know, that would be the equivalent. It's like there's nothing wrong with using Roy Scheider. It's just you use Jaws. You use Jaws.
On
That's
our
all that
movie
is.
podcast, people are gonna understand the Roy Scheider Sequest DSV thing before they understand Jurgen Klopp. I'm sorry.
On there's no way. There's no fucking dude. Nobody's watched Sequest DSV. Nobody except for
Me,
you. Everyone in the UK knows who fucking Jurgen Klopp is. I don't care if you're not into football. You know who Jurgen Klopp is. This is like the Mohamed Salah thing again. We can't get into this. We can't get into it. The weird thing, right? Because this is obviously an old-fashioned 90s movie star vehicle. This is like a proper Harrison Ford movie.
yeah,
You know, you look at the
yeah.
poster, there's no picture, you don't see Air Force One, you just see a giant picture of his melon. And it's like he's had a weird career in terms of, I was like, would this be his biggest movie, which wasn't Indiana Jones or Star Wars, basically? And I thought it would be second highest behind The Fugitive. And you know, maybe you'd have like What Lies Beneath and stuff like that behind it. The second highest by the highest by box office, which isn't Star Wars, Indiana Jones, is actually Secret Lives of Pets 2, which made $431 million,
Wow.
in which he briefly voiced a dog. So Jesus Christ, I had no idea. And also, if you don't adjust for inflation, his second biggest movie of all time is Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. It's like everyone forgets that movie made so much money. It's crazy.
Yeah, because people had to actually understand how bad it was, and the only way you could do that was go in to watch it. Right.
It's okay.
Before we move on, you've just said that. So I'm on the IMDb Harrison Ford page. I'm on his
Mhm.
known for, right?
Yeah.
4 films, usual game we play every now and then.
Raiders, Empire,
I'll give you the
Fugitive,
Star Wars. It's A New Hope.
A New Hope. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
when I think of the Star Wars films, I think of the second one being his
Yeah.
film more than the
And I'll
first
help
one
you
being.
out. Don't pick any more indie or Star Wars films. You only get one.
No, no, no. I'm not going with
Okay.
any. Like I said, I'll go with Fugitive for third.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be this, otherwise you wouldn't bring it up. So I'm going to go with What Lies Beneath.
Oh, no.
Oh, god damn it. Three out
Fucking
of four. I'll take that.
Witness.
Witness. I mean,
Witness.
Witness is a decent film, but I
No.
wouldn't have it in his
But
top
with
four.
the
What he's known for.
With Harrison Ford's repertoire, would you pull Witness as a known for this
I
day and
love
age?
it. I would have loved it if it was like Secret Lives of Pets too, just because it made all the money. But no, I would. Witness is a weird film because it was a big movie. It did well. People liked it. It was, but I don't feel
Yeah.
like anybody talks about Witness anymore. Like
I mean, I would
nobody,
have
and
loved
you
for
never
you.
see it on TV. It's just one of those films. It's just disappeared.
I would have loved for you to have picked out like Ender's Game.
Oh yeah, he was totally in
Yeah.
Ender's Game, which wasn't as bad as some people suggested.
Oh,
It was
mate, it
fine.
was terrible.
I mean, I've never
It was
read the book.
awful.
I think it was just because like you can go into certain films with like dog shit expectations. Like it's totally happened to me with a bunch of films, like The Lone Ranger, for instance. Like the whole world telling me like this film is absolute ass, and then I finally watched it. I was like, it's okay. And like you're almost kind of like you're positive on it because it's not the worst film you've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I do quite enjoy when like a movie is as bad as they say. Like I mentioned this before, but I'll watch a movie for 20 minutes if everyone in the world says it's a complete disaster. And I'm not talking about the ones you watch, like the straight to video nonsense. I'm
You
talking about,
leave my films alone.
I do apologize, but you can understand why they would be bad. But the ones that interest me is like when a movie costs like 200 million, and it's got all this talent behind it, and then it shits the bed. Like as soon as I heard about it, I was like, I don't want to watch the whole film, but I have to see 20 minutes of Cats. And Cats was as bad as people, like you're watching it, you're like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it's this bad. And 20 minutes, like I was watching it, I was like, this is horrendous. And then like James Corden shows up. I'm like, okay, that's enough. I'm turning this motherfucker off. But to get back to good movies, so we'll get back to this one. As I said, I mean, it almost feels like it's part of an unofficial trilogy of 90s political action movies. Like you got these in the 90s, these star, and that to bring it back to the box office, you get this drop off after his big, oh, I'm Han Solo, Indiana Jones. Because back then you could make a movie which made 300 million, and that would be enough. So a lot of the movies where you think of Harrison Ford, it was Clear and Present Danger in 94, Patriot Games in 92, and then
Yeah.
this. And even though they're big, it's a Harrison Ford vehicle. By today's standards, you'd always, I'm not sure if you'd use it in the movie space, but certainly in video games, you refer to them as double A. Like they're made by a big team, but it's not like the Avengers. It was made with a decent budget. It's the kind of movie now which almost doesn't exist. Netflix were kind of picking up the slack and then shit the bed. So I feel like the double A movie, just like double A video games, are gonna come back because there's too much risk with these like, to bring it, Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, and what was the last film? The
Out of Destiny.
Died of Destiny. The biggest issue with that film had a lot of issues. It cost too much. Like that film still made like 400 million, but to break even had to make 600 million. It's not sustainable. So a film like this, it would have cost a fair amount to make, but if it goes and does 300 million at the box office, it's a fucking hit. And it's like that's fine. So I miss films like these. I think we should bring back the star-led, political action movie of the 90s.
And to just have random character actors appear in things you wouldn't believe
Yeah.
would appear in. Where the fuck did Glenn Close come from? Just, oh, by the
With
way,
a
I'm the
bizarre
vice
hairline.
president. The odd, weird, trying to talk down to you sexual tension thing Gary Oldman had going with it. Are you sweating through your blouse yet? How's the
It's
blouse?
weird.
Like, yeah, it was odd. And then you had everyone
Although the
around.
one person, oh sorry, Karen.
So you had everyone around her then treating her like you're a woman in a man's world. Well,
Oh yeah.
I know they were trying to make her the president, but they're just talking down to her. Oh, no, we got to do this. I'm the Secretary of State, or I'm the Secretary of this. I've got to do this. Fucking Dean, what was his name? Dean Stockwell. Just
Yeah.
coming out of nowhere, just like I'm the guy in charge. Well, no, clearly you're not the guy in charge, dude. She's the person in charge.
I have to ask though, right? Because William H Macy's in this. To bring in terms of like
Then
his
does fuck
character
all right until the end.
does fuck off most of the film, but he's good whenever he's in it. That is the problem with Dean Stockwell. Gets a lot more to do as the defense secretary, but I would argue he's quite bad in this film.
Yeah, he's not the best.
Yeah, I was like, is this like it almost felt
No.
like sacrilegious to say it, but I'm watching it, I'm like, and he doesn't get the best lines. A lot of his lines are very on the nose. But I was like, man, I think Dean Stockwell's quite bad in this film.
You want to know who doesn't get a lot? And I was gutted was the general of Kazakhstan, Jurgen Prochnow.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that,
yeah, he's always
you
good.
see that guy, and you're thinking, and they drag him out of bed at the end, at the beginning.
Yeah,
Sorry, they chuck him on the plane, and then at the end, they shoot him.
he
Like,
does. He does have his moment though when he gets to like he looks, he's there with his badges and he's walking out to his soldiers. But the moment like the lights come on him and he has like that panic look and he tries to run for it, I'm like, he's kind of acting his ass off in that sequence. So he has his moment in fairness.
he was on set for one day, wasn't he? It had to have been.
Oh well, no, maybe two because he had to do. Maybe there was the sequence in his bed and then the sequence in the prison. So maybe a day and a half.
Oh yeah, because they had. I suppose they had to shave him.
Yeah, there is
Yeah.
that. But I'd say one not interesting thing with this movie, and it's something we rarely think about because we're not Russian. But I'm watching this film, and Gary Oldman is fantastic in this film. He's great at playing villains, especially in the '90s, was his real heyday of playing villains with like, stuff like this and Leon, whatever. But I was like, is his Russian accent actually any good? So I decided to look it up. So I checked Russia Beyond, whatever that is, and it appears that it's actually held in pretty high regard. It's not like in terms of like the best examples of a Western actor doing a Russian accent. I don't think it's a surprise to hear it, but the one that appears to be held in the highest regard is Viggo Mortensen in Eastern Promises. They're like, that guy
Yeah,
fucking kills
yeah.
it.
Mm.
There's a lot more in terms of bad examples. So John Malkovich in Rounders, although I'm not Russian, I can tell you John Malkovich is shit in the bed in Rounders with his Russian accent.
Oh,
Schwarzenegger
nice.
in
He
Red
checked,
Heat.
check, check. He fucking beats me. I fucking love it.
It's, I mean, it's such a big performance. I think it's in Matt Damon's in Rounders, isn't he?
Matt Damon, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was watching it. I'm sure it was him doing the interview. He's like, oh, he's there with like John Malkovich. He's like, this is going to be awesome. And then in like the line readings, he starts giving this accent. He's like, holy shit, John Malkovich has fucking shown up. It's like, yeah, he's going for it. But the high watermark for truly terrible Russian accents remains Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October, which will come to the surprise of no one. I even went out of my way to rewatch a few scenes, and there's a sequence where he's supposed to be actually speaking Russian, and there's like a comment saying that's not even Russian. It's completely like you're just talking gibberish. It's
You
ridiculous.
mean
It's not even
the
close.
Hunt for Red October coming, what, circa Glasgow or
Oh,
somewhere like that?
it's. I mean, he's never been good. I mean, even the movie he famously won the Oscar for The Untouchables. If you watch that film, in the sequence when he meets, like basically he gets introduced as like just a beat cop, and he
Yeah,
runs into what's his name, Kevin Costner on the bridge.
Kevin Costner, yeah.
There is a hint of an Irish accent in that opening sequence. It is duly abandoned for the rest of the film. And he's just like, and I'm not even going to say a Scottish accent. I live in Scotland. I live in Edinburgh, where he grew up. Nobody speaks like Sean Connery. So he just went back to talking like Sean Connery. Fair enough. Got away with it.
Can I can I go back? Because I'm gonna
Mhm.
take this off the rails again to Jurgen Prochnow. Because he's done loads of films. We know this. And if you thought Jurgen Prochnow and you go, oh yeah, the guy he was in Judge Dredd. He was one of the judges, obviously. He was the guy that
Mhm.
brought in Armand Desante. He was in The Replacement Killers. A good film
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Chow Yun Fat. Yeah. The film I immediately thought of, House of the
Here we
Dead.
go. Oh, he was totally in how the Uwe Boll film based on the
Uwe Boll,
Sega
is it Uwe Boll,
Uwe
however you say it?
Boll,
Yeah,
Uwe Boll, how you pronounce his
yeah.
name.
He was
Yeah.
he was the
Oh,
captain with Ron Howard's brother, wasn't he? With
dude, you haven't seen that, have you?
I went to the cinema to see that.
Oh, dude, right. Listen, I am the biggest Sega fan in the world. Like, I'm a video game guy, but I'm a
Yeah.
Sega dude. And like one of the most iconic Sega franchises is House of the Dead. And even that wouldn't get me within a fucking country mile of that movie. I watched the trailer. I was like, yep, that's enough of that. I mean, Uwe Boll went through this weird phase in like the early to like late noughties, whatever it was,
Yeah,
where he just
he
kept
did them all.
making really obscure video game franchises. I mean, he did Far Cry back in the day, and that he was in Far Cry as well, I think.
Dude, I've seen them all. I've seen Far Cry,
Oh,
and I
brilliant.
don't think Jurgen Prochnow was in
No,
Far
no,
Cry. No, that was
he's not. I was thinking of the guy from Inglorious Bastards, I think is in it.
Tig. What was his name?
Yeah,
Tig. Yeah, I
Tig,
got it by you. It's 2 secs.
good man.
Till Schweiger.
Till Schweiger. That's a great name. Till
Yeah.
Schweiger. We should remember
So he
that.
did that. Yeah, he did. I love how I just brought this off the rails. He did Blood Rain, Alone
Oh,
in the
that see,
Dark.
most people haven't even heard of the fucking video game Blood Rain. That is so niche.
Sorry, not just Blood Rain. He's done Blood Rain 2, Blood Rain 3.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
Alone in
did.
the Dark had fucking Christian Slater in it.
Yes.
Dude,
Alone
I
in the
love
Dark 2
actors
didn't, though.
coming back. They're bringing back a new video game in that. But when
Alone
he
in the
came,
Dark
everyone
with Christian
forgot about
Slater
him.
and Stephen Dorff and Tara Reid.
Didn't he do like they actually gave him a budget with Jason Statham and he did The King and I. I'm not making
In
that
the
up, am
Name of the
I?
King, a Dungeon
In the
Siege
name of the
film.
King.
Yeah. And
That's
that
it. Dungeon Siege. That's a fucking. That's a video game.
that ended up being shit, but they decided, you know what, we'll double down. So they did a sequel, and I think the sequel had the dude from Prison Break in it, not the main character, the brother,
Yeah,
Dominic
yeah, yeah,
Purcell.
yeah.
And then
Mhm.
the third one had
The
Dolph
third
Lundgren.
one.
Dolph Lundgren.
Amazing.
But it was
I
when,
just
and then
remember that like Dungeon
at that point,
Siege.
they'd run out of ideas, and they went, you know what, Dolph Lundgren's a cop from the future. He just gets sent back in time to Dungeon Siege times.
Are you fucking shitting me?
Nope.
I see now. I'm like, do I have to watch this goddamn movie? I might have to. It's ridiculous. How the
Awesome.
hell are we going to get this back to Air Force One? We've gone so off the rails. All right, wait, I've got it. Right. In this film, we mentioned the fact that Gary Oldman's character dies a bit too early, and the ending is a little bit of a letdown. I
Okay.
would say the best sequence in this film, and I'm stepping on favorite sequence here a little bit, actually, totally stepping on favorite sequence. The landing sequence is amazing when they take the plane and they're trying to get them to land the plane, and we get all the acting with Elia Baskin's face.
Oh,
I
the land and
forgot.
take off one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
sequence is amazing, and it's so rare that usually when you get these movies, the bad guys are all super professional at the start. I'm immediately thinking of Die Hard. That they take the building, they take the bank super professionally, and then things go off the rails later on. In this, you are thinking, oh well, how are the bad guys going to get out of this one? You're almost rooting for the bad guys at the start of
Yeah,
the film. It's
yeah.
really bizarre, but that sequence is so well shot, and it has to work because it's like 30 minutes into the movie, but it's super tense and incredibly well shot. I love that sequence.
It is one of the better sequences. Like I said, it's so tense. It gives you, because I totally forgot about it as well. I was like, did they actually
Mhm.
land the plane? Is the rest of this film
I
about
know,
them on
right?
the runway? And nope, straight back up in the air again. And it's just your heart is doing that, like the plane is doing. It's
Yeah, yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. Well, because you think of other films, like they often try and do these sequences, something like Con Air, where they do land the plane and they have a sequence. But in terms of like they kind of land the plane, and at one point I was like, I don't know, I can't remember how they get out of this, and I know they get back up in the in the air because that's how the rest of the film goes. But that whole sequence was super tense, incredibly well shot, and it was all about the bad guys, not about the good guys. Really good start to this film, and as I said, it's a shame that the best set piece in the movie is so early in the film, and it can detrimentally impact the rest of the movie. One that stands out for me is another bizarre choice here, but Superman Returns, the one from like 2007, 2008. The end of that film is fine, but there's a sequence, again, similar distance, 30 minutes into that film, involves a plane where
When he
Superman
catches a
saves the
plane in the football, in the
in the
baseball field.
baseball stage.
Yeah,
It's one of
yeah.
my favorite action sequences of any superhero film. The rest of the film doesn't all work. I think it's underrated, but that sequence is pure, unadulterated peak Superman, and the rest of the film just can't match it. And I think this film has a slightly similar issue from an action perspective. When they get to the end and they, because they don't want to turn it into an action sequence. I get it. They want Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman on screen together. They have that big face off. It works, but then they're almost like, we need an action set piece after this, and that's when it goes off the rails. But it is what it is.
Yeah, you think they would have been a better as they're crashing. You can have a fight between Gary Oldman and Harrison Ford, but
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so just go. Oh, do you know who we forgot about? Gibbs. Gibbs with the loudest silencer in the world that nobody else heard when he took those three guys out.
I just like there's a lot of odd sequences. Like when Harrison Ford finally makes out of the cargo hold, gets the rest of the, excuse me, we'll call them prisoners or whatever, and they're like, oh, we've got to make a plan, and their big plan is we need to send a fax, and nobody knows how to send a fax except for Sandra from accounts, and I was
What's she
laughing at
doing
that
on
at
the plane
first.
as well? And he says, "I'll make you Secretary of State or wherever it is if this
Yeah, well, fair
works."
play. She saves everyone's lives.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, that's ridiculous. Only one person knows how to send a fax. But unbelievably, in my job, every so often, you still have to send a fax. And it is basically impossible. You never
Yeah.
know the number to dial in. It always ends up back to front and upside down without fail. And she's got one shot at this. If I was in that position, they're like, "Is anyone sent a fax?" Like, well, I actually sent a fax about a month ago. I would send. It would be the wrong side of the paper, and it'd be upside down, and we'd all die. So fair play to her. She really is the heroine of this movie, if
Although
nothing else.
1997 faxes were still pretty big, I would
Pretty, but
imagine.
they've never been easy though. They've
Are you
never been.
telling me
It's
as well, right? Are you telling me the president doesn't have his own emergency contact number?
it does seem odd, doesn't it, that he had to just dial up like a
Yeah, like
random number.
you have. There's got to be one Secret Service agent who has his own room
Mhm.
in the White House. That if that
Yeah.
phone ever rings, well, we know that's the president.
Mhm.
All the president has to remember is one, like 7 digits. Just remember, it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, fucking 7 for all we
Yeah,
care.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just remember this number, Mr. President, in case you're ever in trouble. No, no, no. He's got to go for the main switchboard where some woman's like, yeah, you ain't the fucking president.
Oh yeah, and by the way, Susan on the switchboard, I'm not sure if that's her name. She is so bad at a job. You think like how seriously? I heard a story recently where somebody had texted like jokingly on a WhatsApp thing at the airport about having a bomb on the plane, but
Yeah.
they'd made the mistake of basically sending that message when they were on the airport Wi-Fi, and somebody's
Oh,
eventually read it, and they've had to have like jet show up to take the plane, not take the plane down as in blow out of the sky, but escort it back to the ground where the guy's got in loads of trouble. If somebody phones up when you know the president is missing and says, "No, I'm the fucking president," and just happens to, I don't know, sound like Harrison Ford, you have to take it seriously, because you're just like in the one in a million chance. Because you're like, you would tell them, like, listen, if you're fucking us round, you're going to be in so much trouble. But you would have to escalate it. Whereas Susan's just like, you're full of shit. I'm not fucking having
so I
that.
don't know why, right? I've convinced myself this has happened with Susan, and she's Susan now. I have convinced
She's
myself
definitely
this.
Susan.
Was she knitting?
It looked like she was named.
So yeah, okay. I convinced myself she was knitting, and I don't know why that I thought they wouldn't let her knit. Like again, in the White House, they let her just take her own knitting needles in.
Yeah, yeah, just as well. You've seen all the people they're just letting on the plane. They're
Yeah.
letting Russians with dodgy facial hair. There's a bunch of people at the front. They're like, who are they? Oh, I don't fucking know. We're just giving them a lift. Anything. This is 1997. Anything goes in 1997. This is pre 2000, 2001, all that jazz. 9/11. It was just everyone just getting on planes, just hopping on. You could just show up at the runway. People forget. And I think it's hard to explain to kids who grew up, like, post 9/11, what airports like now. And it almost feels like a fever dream. And I need movies to remind me just how comparatively relaxed airports
Yeah,
were.
we
The
were
classic
allowed
one
to
is
go to
always, is
departures.
fucking, well, Home Alone, where they just leave the house in Chicago and they basically just run to the plane. They just
Yeah.
run to the fucking
Well,
plane.
as
They're just
kids,
like,
we were allowed to go to departures to watch the planes take off.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
was, people were basically just on the fucking runway. It's like, yeah, of course. You can't fuck around on a plane. You all die. And then obviously these suicide guys go and ruin it for fucking everyone, assholes.
Oh,
But yeah,
fucking
back
pricks.
before, like, post like 9/11, like you could just go basically through an airport onto a plane. Everything was fine. Those days are sadly gone. And obviously the same rules applied in 1997 on Air Force One, because anyone can fucking show up.
I know,
Absolutely
I
ridiculous.
know it was 1997, but I am judging it in 2024 standards. When he wants the game put on the TV. Air Force One has all these bells and whistles,
Mhm.
and that fucking TV they put the game on. I thought, fucking hell, that was awful.
But yeah, but this is 1997. Like, you got to
I'm
think
still
about,
judging it now. I'm
it's
expecting the flat screen.
yeah, but there were no
I
flat screens. That's
know.
right. And the thing is, right, it's not, people are like, oh, surely there's enough room there for a bigger screen. You had bigger screens in 1997. Yes, we did. But you forget about the ass that came with the screen on
Yeah,
a TV in 1997. My friends had like a 30-inch TV when we were younger, and that seemed ludicrous. The standard, as bizarre as this sounds, when I was growing up, was 21-inch for your living room, was the
yeah.
complete standard. If you had a 30-inch TV, it basically took up half your fucking living room, because the ass in it was absolutely ginormous for the bulbs and all that other bollocks. Like, you look back at TVs then, they are so big. It's ridiculous. Like, a 21-inch TV took up half the goddamn room. So yeah, there's only so much room on Air Force One. It's Air Force One. It's still a plane. You're not getting a bigger TV
My
on there. No
my
way.
dad's friend needed help one day to move a 30-inch TV from
Mhm.
upstairs.
Oh,
And yeah, I've never seen 7 men struggle to move a TV
they
before.
weighed
Yeah.
so much. They weighed
When they
so much.
when the inevitable happened and they dropped it, The crater it
Of course.
left, the crater it left was ridiculous.
Oh,
But that
they were so
TV,
bad.
that TV was fine. It was
Oh
perfectly
yeah, yeah.
fine.
It was dropping an old-fashioned TV was like dropping a Nokia 3210, whatever they were called. 20,
Oh,
what were they
30,
called?
3330 was it?
Well, whatever one it
Yeah.
was, those like indestructible phones. Now you drop a phone, and you're like, man, that's gonna be fucked. Those you could just throw out the fucking window. And it was the same with those big ass TV. You weren't worried about the TV. You were worried about what the TV was landing on.
Yeah.
That's why if you watch a movie like Scream, you could kill someone by dropping a TV on their face. Now, if you dropped a TV on me, I'm sitting here looking at a 51-inch TV. You can drop that on me from the top of the building. It wouldn't hurt me. It would just break the. It might hurt me. It's not going to kill me. If you dropped a 1997 31-inch TV, like literally off a table onto my face, game over.
Do you know pictures of Final Destination 2 when that massive pane of glass just crushed that kid?
Oh yeah, yeah. I suppose
Yeah.
they bring it like whenever I think most people when they think of Final Destination 2, you have to think of the logs, don't you?
Oh, the logs, yeah. But when we're
Yeah.
talking about something made of glass crushing somebody, you're not going to say the
Oh yeah,
logs.
yeah, yeah. No, I
Yeah,
just can't. I literally, it's one of those films. Like if you say Destination 2, and I know exactly what sequence you're there, that sequence just tries to force its way into my
yeah.
head.
I
It's so
love as well.
synonymous with that movie.
Welcome to the Air Force One podcast, care of every other film on the fucking planet, apparently.
I know. And the thing is, I look at my next note for the movie, and it's literally, oh, isn't Harrison Ford's hair reassuringly scruffy? It is, though. Like
Yeah.
every single movie Harrison Ford is in, his hair just looks scruffy, even when he's the president, in a pleasing way, because he's a very handsome man. But his hair's never like perfectly combed over. It always looks quite scruffy. And I think that's what gives him his everyman charm, even as he's playing the president in this film. But that is why this movie fundamentally works. It's a well-made political action thriller for sure, but the reason it works is because you've got Harrison Ford as the president, and you've got Gary Oldman as Ivan Korshunov, isn't it? And
Yeah.
they're both absolutely swinging for the fences in this film, especially Gary Oldman, who's brilliant at just spitting out these lines in Russian. But that is fundamentally why this film works, and why after Korshunov's death, it slightly goes off the rails and starts to feel a little bit silly. But for the most part, this film totally works for still, I think. And like other than one or two minor moments in regards to the special effects, I think it just holds up. It really does. And it's because most of it, like you said, is set in the cargo hold. So it's just like, yeah, it's like a perfectly decent cargo hold. No problems here.
Did you think as well, right? Wendy Crewson as Grace Marshall, who I could have sworn was played by fucking Ashley Judd.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think she'd ever think uh, her life would get better? So I'm playing Grace Marshall. I'm playing Harrison Ford's wife. In 3 years'
Mm-hmm.
time, I'm gonna be Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife in the sixth day.
Oh, the sixth day. But the problem is with her, and it's a true 90s cinema tradition of giving the wife proper fuck all to do. And
Yeah.
this is one of those movies, sadly. She is given absolutely fuck all to do. There's even like an open goal when they're all in like I don't know what you call it, the control deck, where you finally have the face off with Harrison Ford
Oh, they
and
call it the cockpit.
Gary Oldman.
They called it all the
Yeah,
cockpit.
the cockpit, whatever you want to call that section. And there is a real opportunity for her to do something, or for her to be given something to do in that sequence. But even then, she's removed from the equation. Like she's
Yeah.
just standing there being wife to the president. And it's such a shame. But I mean, that sequence is still great because I love the bit where Harrison Ford is like standing his ground about like, we don't, negotiate with terrorists, and he's doing the countdown and he's about to shoot his daughter, and then he has that like strong men also cry, like his voice cracks, he's like, I'll do it, and it's just, you're like, oh yeah, that's why Harrison Ford's the man. And he's one of those rare like movie stars who can do it all. Like, as much as I love, say, Tom Cruise has a limit on the certain characters he can play, whereas Harrison Ford, it feels like he can do, despite the fact that he's like 6'2", handsome as fuck, he can just be the guy next door. Like Tom Cruise can't be the guy next guy.
Harrison
That
Ford
guy.
can play every character. Tom Cruise can only play pieces of shit. Like,
Listen, I know you don't like him, but he's got that but if you look at, say, right, on the one end you've got like ultra mega movie star Tom Cruise, who looks, and I know you're not a fan, but he looks like a movie star, blah blah blah, looks the part as Ethan Hawke. And then at the other end of the spectrum you've got, say, Tom Hanks, who's a movie star, but he's the everyman kind of thing. But the thing is, with as good as Tom Hanks is, I don't think he works in this movie. I'm not saying he couldn't play the president in the movie. I don't think he could play this version of the president.
No, I don't think so. I mean, but I mean, you look at him in Road to Perdition, mind. You didn't think he could do that, and he did that very well.
He
So
was he was great, but I don't think
yeah,
he's got the thing he's lacking. Arguably, is that physicality. Like the fact that,
yeah,
again, it just comes from the fact that he is 6'2", and I don't think Harrison Ford has ever cleanly won a fight in his life. That's the brilliant thing. Like, even right, like, you believe that he can fight, but, and we've said it before, nobody takes an ass whooping better than Harrison Ford. But an ass whooping where he wins the fight. Like it's never like, I punch a dude, game over. It always turns into a scrap. He always looks like he's about to lose, but then comes out on top. It's just, yeah, classic Harrison
yeah.
Ford.
In this film, he relied on choking
Excuse
quite
me.
heavily, didn't he? He like
Oh yeah.
he referred to his BDSM side, I'm sure, because he was choking the shit out of everybody.
Well, it's just not, and that is the thing. This isn't a modern day action movie. You think most now they would have like these really elaborate action sequences. Most of the fights in this, it's him clumsily wrestling with a dude. Everyone just trying to grab the gun on the ground. Even the big fight with Gary Oldman at the end, it's all a little bit clumsy, but it does ground, no pun intended, ground the movie in so much. It's not like a super president. He's, very much in the John McClane role, where he's kind of like, yeah, he's got enough talent behind him. Yes, he's got a history of, being at war, blah, blah, blah. But he is just about making this work at every turn.
Yeah,
Good film, though. And again, we don't need to go back towards the end of the film and the fact that the zip line looks silly
I
and the
mean,
fact
look,
that it kind
it's
of.
all gonna get covered in the next couple of sections, I'm sure. So, want
All
to
right,
move
let's
on to
move on to
favorite
favorite
scene?
scene then.
Yeah.
Favorite scene. I've kind of, right. The obvious answer is "Get off my plane" because it's like one of the
Knew
best
you were gonna
one-liners
do
in a
that.
movie.
It's the only
Well, no,
you.
it's the obvious choice, and it is a great sequence because it's Gary Oldman, it's Harrison Ford together. Get off my plane. The line delivery is amazing, but the actual answer, and I thought it was going to be that, and I was going to take the easy out. It is the terrorist taking Air Force One and the great face acting. That is the best sequence in the film
The
for me.
face acting.
It's amazing face acting. But yeah, that whole sequence, I was on the edge of my seat, even though I knew how it basically worked out. But to have that sequence at the start of the film to be all about the terrorists instead of the good guys, I thought was absolutely fantastic.
For me, it's get off my plane. No, no, I'm joking.
Son of a bitch.
No, it's the tenseness of the probably towards the end of what you were saying. It's the plane landing, and you got the guys going, whatever happens, we're gonna land this plane. We're gonna land this plane, and then all of a sudden they have to take back off again, and it's it's fantastically done. To be fair, it looks great. I
Yeah,
think
it
it's
looks
so
great. The
good.
way it's
Yeah.
set up, yeah, brilliant sequence, brilliant sequence.
Yep.
In terms of loves and hates, for loves, number one, Ford on top form, brilliant in this film. Number two, Oldman in peak villain mode, and number three, they do a great job of making Air Force One a conceivable location for a 2-hour action movie. That is almost a miracle. Like, there's not that many
Sorry,
places to go. They make the
something
cargo
happened with
hold
your
feel
internet then.
super important.
So sorry, something happened with your internet then, and you went into
Oh
slow
no!
motion.
Oh,
You
something I had
just
to
went.
repeat myself.
It's fine. It worked. It was just you
Yo.
a two
My third
hour
love is the
action
geography.
movie.
Oh, well, sometimes I got the point. Even if it was in slow
Yeah, yeah,
motion, I
yeah.
don't
It
need
was
to
good.
repeat it
Yeah,
again in
but
slow motion. So
it
yeah,
made me laugh.
that's my third one.
So for me, Harrison Ford. I think he does well as the president. He has that gravitas. You are going to follow this guy. You got
Yeah,
no
it always
problem.
feels like you're lowballing him when you're like, he does well as the president. He's
It's all right.
fine. He's
It's all
okay.
right.
Yeah, he's all right.
Gary Oldman is great. I think. I love. There was a meme once. Imagine waking up just to find out you were Gary Oldman in a film because he's that good. Your entire
He
life,
is that good.
you're Gary Oldman.
And that's honestly why I looked up the whole Russian accent thing, because he's great in this film. But I'm like, I wonder if they have a completely different opinion of him in Russia because his accent is dog shit. Like, he'd still be good because he's acting well, but his accent supposedly is pretty decent. So yeah, he's the full package, man.
Yep. And the action sequences on the confined plane, I really liked. Like
Mhm,
they
mhm,
felt.
mhm,
I've used the word tense a couple of times, but they felt tense. They felt encapsulated within the area that they've
mhm.
got. They've got this weird. one-on-one standoff at either corridor of the plane. They're in the fucking air. So
Yeah, yeah.
if one rogue bullet hits the fucking hull, don't they all go anyway?
Well, that's my wife mentioned that a few times while we're watching it. And they do shoot with somewhat gay abandon, dare I say.
Yeah.
I can only assume that because it's Air Force One, that it's better protected than your average plane. That a bullet isn't going to suddenly take out the hull because it can. They mentioned it earlier that it can take all these hits, blah blah blah, and it'll stay in the air. I assume that the same is true of being inside the plane as well. It'll be so well protected that even if guns are shot, it's not just going to fall out. It's not. It's not like if you started, fucking spraying bullets on a Ryanair flight. It's just not the same beast. But yeah.
You know.
In terms of hate, the whole Gibbs thing doesn't really work for me. We've already mentioned it. It's and trying to push him as the villain at the end when you don't know what his plans are really. You don't know why he's doing it or why he should give a shit. And that leads me into number two. Everything after Korshinov's death gets a tag Team America, including the zip lines. As soon as the MiGs show up, they're like, we've got MiGs, and you've got fucking Harrison Ford flying the plane. I'm like, we haven't got anyone to fly the plane. Oh, I beg to differ. We have Harrison Ford, sir. All a bit silly. And yeah, Elia Baskin's face acting has stuck with me more than I'd like. I still see it in my dreams. I'm not sure if it's brilliant or terrible, but I'm not sure if I want to remember it 2 weeks later. But hey, it is what it is.
For me, not knowing Gibbs is the bad guy. Just look at the fucker. I know it's a film. I know it's not real life. You can't just look at a guy in the street and go, "Well, you're evil." So, but yeah, he's evil. And again, to 20 minutes left of the film, and then you take out
Yeah, he's evil. That's that
Gary
you
Oldman.
should be working. You should be working security on Air Force One. It's like, no, he's evil. It's like, why? Look at him. Like, okay, well, he didn't pass the rod test. He's gonna have to fucking go.
And I go, shit, we landed safely. Maybe he was evil. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's like, dude, I don't know. I don't know. He does it. Some people say he can smell evil. Like he can just smell evil, like a dog. I don't fucking get it, but he's got 100% record. He has nothing to back it up. He just eyeballs someone, gives them an ocular pat down, tells them you're not getting on this fucking plane. 100%.
sorry, say ocular background.
An ocular pat down. I
That
assume you
is
don't watch.
awesome. That is the name for my next band.
Well,
Wow, on stage,
I have
ocular
stolen it from
background.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so you have to talk with those guys.
Oh, I don't watch Always Sunny, but okay, ocular pat down. That's fucking fantastic.
You
Uh,
should totally watch Always Sunny, by the way.
my second one is everybody in that situation room is fucking annoying. Glenn Close and everyone, just
Even
and
like Glenn Close is this amazing actress, but even she's slightly annoying. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
the same as you. When we've hardly mentioned that whole sequence where they cut to the Situation Room, and it's for a reason. The only thing we mentioned is really Dean Stockwell is kind of annoying, but yeah, I that's one
yeah.
of my least favorite parts of the film. Good shout.
And the third one is towards the end. Well, actually, right at the end, where they're all in the situation room going, "Do you have the president? Do you have the president? Do you have the president?" You know, the pilot's going, "Oh, wait for this fucking banger of a line. Wait for this line. We'll just wait, but wait for this banger of a line. We are now Air Force One. Yay! They got the president. Everyone
Oh
happy.
yeah.
Oh, this is fucking stupid."
Again, it almost reminds me of like the end of Independence Day.
Yeah,
It suddenly turns into a bizarre B movie, which it just isn't. It's like all the credibility fell off the plane with Gary Oldman. Like it just
yeah.
flew out the fucking airlock with Gary Oldman. And for the rest of the film, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll make a B movie. It's like, all right, fair enough. Let's fucking go with it. But I'll be amazed if there are any alternative titles for this film. But please tell me otherwise, sir.
Uh, yes and no. Right. So Argentina, it's called presidential plane.
Okay, yeah.
Canada, Air Force One, presidential aircraft.
It's just unnecessary.
Yep. Estonia, president's plane.
They just go on the basis that not enough people in Estonia know what Air Force One is. That's all I can
Well,
assume.
Hungary, treating the president like a 12-year-old boy. Yes, yes, it is your plane. Oh, it is. It's the president's special plane. Yes, yes, it
Oh,
is.
get fucked. It's called the President's Special Plane.
Yes.
God, that borderline sounds like a porn spin-off. Ridiculous. Like you
And that's
get those
where,
like 90s like British pornos where people have sex in the back of like a cab. Sounds
yeah.
like that. Like that's what those extra people on the plane for. Fucking. That's what they were on the plane for.
Oh my God. I thought the president's special plane was going to be the best one. Nope. So I got two here. Slovenia was abduction.
Slovenia. It's Slovenia. It's fine.
Fuck off. Kazakhstan, right? No, Slovenia, it was abduction. But
Okay, yeah.
the best one, the winner, we're going to end on this one, Slovakia.
Hmm.
Hey, number one, the number one aircraft in the air.
Wait, so what is it actually called? Sorry.
The number one aircraft in the air.
Oh, come on. They okay, that one wins. That one wins. I thought same as you, President's special plane was there for the win, but
Yeah.
Slovak snuck in. Unbelievable. Any facts to this one?
Yeah, we got a couple. So initially, director, co-producer Wolfgang Peterson was. Oh, you've already did that one.
Sorry, my apologies.
That's right. The lead role was written for Kevin Costner, but he was heavily committed to The Postman and suggested Harrison Ford for the part. Yeah,
Oh, see,
maybe.
you're asking me who else could do this? Kevin Costner might have been the
Yeah.
guy. Like 1997, he's maybe losing a little bit of his sheen. Well, he was about to with The Postman. God, imagine how
Yeah.
different it could have been if he had made this instead of The Postman.
Yeah.
That could have put him back on track for sure.
Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman are actually hitting each other during the fight scenes.
Good. Although I do fear that Harrison Ford will kick Gary Oldman's ass in fairness.
When Ivan gives his thumbprint for a background check near the beginning of the film, the date of birth that comes up among his info is Gary Oldman's real birthday, just in case you didn't know that. Harrison Ford was paid 20 million for the movie.
Back in the days. Well, that was the thing. That's what sold the
Yep.
film. It wasn't the concept. It wasn't. It was just his giant head, Harrison Ford.
The shot where the 747 the shot where the 747 swerves on the ground at Ramstein was performed at half speed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, are you going to tell me off? Is it Ramstein?
No. You go Ramstein. Ramstein's fine. only when you're blatantly mispronouncing whole countries. That's the only time I'm going to go after you.
The production was allowed to use CNN's actual Los Angeles studio for its mock CNN segments.
Oh, cool.
You know, the people just getting in everywhere.
I know, right? Again, it's the Harrison Ford effect. Harrison Ford calls up, you do what he says.
In December 2015, Donald Trump revealed his admiration for Harrison Ford on the plane. He stood up for America. When Ford was
He
told during
did.
a television interview of Trump's compliment, he turned to the camera and said, Donald, it was just a movie. Things like this don't happen in real life.
Well, it's sad that he felt the need to explain that, but yeah, probably the best that he did. He's like, oh, he's a Republican president as well. Oh yeah, of course,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Gary Oldman used his salary for this film to help finance his directorial debut, Nail by Mouth.
Oh, nice. That worked out then.
Yeah. Wolfgang Peterson mentions in a DVD commentary that he enjoyed working with Liesl Matthews because she was able to cry on cue. Right, that sounds a
Yeah,
little
that
bit.
helps.
So
Well, I
Liesl
guess if you don't,
Matthews was the daughter, but that's a
she didn't do much else, did she either?
no. But that's I don't know. That feels a little bit icky. Try for me. Try.
Well,
Try
I
now.
tell you what, if you've got a separate, like a kind of sixth, seventh bill character, and then he's crying a sequence, and you're working to a deadline, and they can just turn on the waterworks, like, oh, fantastic, no fuss,
Yeah.
no muss.
So Dean Stockwell and Jurgen Prochnow had previously appeared together in June and Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Ah, cool. God, he was in Beverly Hills
Scott
Cop
Glenn
too.
was considered for the role of Agent Gibbs. No, I kind of would have, yeah, I would have liked Scott Glenn as that. But
Oh
again,
yeah, I could totally go with that. Yeah, I think it needed somebody a bit more memorable for me
yeah,
personally. Because that's the thing, right? You can have an almost, and I don't want to say a no name, but you can have a low key actor if you don't know Gibbs is double crossing. So then when he does show up at the end, you're like, holy shit, I didn't see that coming. But you are told early doors Gibbs is clearly working against the president. It just needed somebody a bit more memorable, sadly.
yeah. One more from me, and then we're done. Glenn Close was a last-minute casting decision to play Vice President Catherine Bennett. Close wore a wig from her own collection during shooting because her haircut at the time was too short for the role. She only
That
made one
makes so
objection.
much sense.
She only made one objection about her character in the original script. They had written a scene of her breaking down and crying, and I said, I will not do that because I thought we'd be doing a woman a disfavor if we had that cliche moment where she breaks down. Nonetheless, the character does tear up visibly when the NSA advisor is killed while she's on the phone with the terrorists.
That's fair enough, though. That's a
Yeah.
different thing. Like, if she has a breakdown because she can't deal with it, it's completely different to having an emotional reaction to somebody getting murdered on the phone
Yeah.
because of her decision. Yeah, that's totally fine. And like I said, that does help explain her slightly odd hairline. We're watching the film, like, what is going on with it? Like, there's something about her hair or hairline which just didn't sit right for us or didn't sit right on her head. And it's because she was wearing a wig. So I feel a lot better about that now. This is the next section is Hug to the Future. This is where we ask a question: remake, sequel, Don't Touch or Let It Die. For me, it is Don't Touch. Like it's so wonderfully 90s. It's an old-fashioned movie star movie. I mean, like if you're going to have this stay, who would you even have as the president? Like, or are you going to do better than Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman in 2024? Like, the obvious answer is someone saying Chris Pine. That is not the answer. I would like personally. We talked about Gibbs, like having someone like Adam Driver as Gibbs. That would work. You could even maybe have Adam Driver as Korshunov. I think he might work as like the bad guy
Yeah.
if you're going to do a modern day version. Although my answer to everything nowadays appears to be Adam Driver. Like Bradley Cooper as the president, maybe. Does he have the
Oh no, I
physicality?
don't think so. I think you
How
need
about how
somebody.
about Big Idris? I think he might work.
Idris will work.
I think although,
Yeah.
and I might just be saying that this is going back to Gibbs again now, I think, rather than the president. Just because I've been watching Halo season 2, Pablo Schreiber has this physical. Like I just love Pablo Schreiber. I think he has this like amazing
Yeah.
physicality. If he was like the guard, if you saw him at the end, even if he hasn't done much for the rest of the movie, he has this unbelievable physicality. Like, oh, this guy's going to be a problem. Another guy, a guy we both love, I think, has the same kind of thing. Is Joel Kinnaman. He
Yeah.
just has this
Yeah.
like he just looks like he's always been big. He doesn't look like he bulked up for the role. He's
Have
just like
you
that guy's just fucking big.
have you seen Pablo Schreiber as Mad Sweeney in American Gods?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's great,
You
and
want to see?
he's
Yeah.
big in that, and he's great. And what's the film with Jared Butler? Um,
Oh
Den of
yeah, with
Thieves.
Ice Cube's kid where they rob.
It is Den of Thieves, isn't it?
Yeah, Den of
Yeah, Den
Thieves.
of
Yeah.
Thieves.
Yeah.
Pablo Schreiber's fucking dope in that film as well.
You
Like
want to
he's
go for
like
the president,
he's.
mind? Yeah,
Mhm.
Leave Schreiber.
Oh, Lee Shaw would be great because he's another one. He doesn't look as naturally big, but you have to remember, like Wolverine, an origin story, whatever the fuck it was called, Origins. That was a bad film, except for fucking Lee Schreiber as
A
Sabretooth,
Sabretooth. Yeah,
who
yeah.
was awesome. Like he was all threat, and he's just again, he's bigger than you because he's not as tall as Pablo. You don't like that's a dude. You should have them facing off against each other.
Yeah.
I'd have Lee Schreiber as the president. That's a great shout. Pablo Schreiber as Gibbs. So he ends up fighting him at the end, so it adds a bit of drama. But then I'd have Adam Driver as Gary
So
Oldman's character. There we go.
you're remaking this now, are you?
Yeah, but I don't. The problem is you can't put Lee Schreiber's face on the poster. It turns into a Netflix movie again, doesn't it? Because Adam Driver, you could maybe have him. Maybe if you had them both, that might work. But yeah, like Lee Schreiber, as great as Lee Schreiber is, he's not Harrison Ford in
I
1997.
mean, for me, you're leaving it alone because of only one. You cannot make a film like this post 9/11. You can't do it.
Maybe.
You cannot make
I'm
a film
not
like
even sure what the answer is now. I said
no.
don't touch it, and then
Yeah,
immediately talked myself out of it. So fuck knows.
but no,
I
you
just
leave
think
it alone.
if you're gonna do a remake, it can't be. It has to be a relatively big budget movie. You have to throw a bit of money in it. I don't want to see it on Netflix. I want to see it on the big screen. And as much as I like Liev Schreiber, I just feel like you need to find. I think maybe Idris Elba might be the guy for it.
Yeah, Idris Elba has that. He has that calm demeanor, but also at any point he's
He's a
gonna
big
turn
guy
on. I
again.
mean,
He's probably a similar size to Harrison Ford in 1997.
unfortunately, if they remake it, they're gonna make Jason Momoa as the president. So
Or Timothy Chalamet.
yeah,
Go the complete opposite direction. No, it
yeah,
would be fucking not Chris Pine. Who's the one who does
Pratt,
Mario and all that shit? Chris
Pratt.
Pratt. Yeah, sorry, I said Chris Pine. Chris Pratt. I do apologize. One of the fucking Chris's. But no, I think you are right. Let's just leave it in the past.
Yeah.
I've took myself back into it. In terms of making a change, so if you could only change one thing in the entire movie, for me it's easy. It's keeping Korshunov alive until the end. That's the big thing for me.
That was mine.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
the obvious answer.
you spend so much time building him up as a threat, and then you take him out pretty much within 20. He should have been the guy holding onto the side of the plane, ready to bounce out.
100%. And don't get me wrong, I didn't have an issue with his death, like on the back of the plane and the way he got choked and stuff. And obviously, you get the great line in that sequence. That just needed to be the last thing that happened, basically. Like
Yeah.
that, it just happened too early. So yeah, that is the correct answer. In terms of video games, there wasn't a video game, unsurprisingly. The thing is, there was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, the original one. Okay, that was set on, I think it was like the equivalent of like the Russian Air Force one, but the sequence works. And I think there is a plane mission on the new Modern Warfare as well. But I'm not sure if it works as a direct comparison, but I just think of like Call of Duty games having really good levels on planes. I'm just not sure if you can stretch that out as a whole movie on the plane. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I think it needs that cinematic edge. So I'm going to say Call of Duty, but I'm not quite sure how it works over, say, like a 6 hour campaign. But
Sorry, Naughty Dog, Uncharted 3, the plane sequence where you got the fight and everything, and the
he's
way it
hanging out on the
crashed and
plane
everything.
from
Yeah,
that's Uncharted 3, yeah.
yeah, Thieves End. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's probably the problem is the rest of the film doesn't quite like you're spending so much time on the plane. Like I
yeah.
know what
No,
you
I
mean,
get
but
you.
and that's the problem we've both got. We're both thinking about like set pieces linked to games. So I'm thinking of working through the plane in Call of Duty, and you're thinking about the bit where you're hanging out of the plane in Uncharted. But neither of us can quite figure out how the rest of the fucking video game works. So yeah, we'll go with your one just because it looks cooler. In terms of scores and recommendations, for me, it's this is like bang on 4 stars. Like even like with the end not quite landing, again, no pun intended. I still think it's a great movie. I think Harrison Ford's fantastic. I think Gary Oldman's brilliant. The visuals still hold up. It's on Disney Plus now, so you can go and watch it. And it's just an easy watch. It's just an enjoyable. Like, if you go back and look at all those, like I mentioned earlier, those political action thrillers that Harrison Ford did in the 90s. They're just like metronomic. They all made a really similar amount at the box office. They all did good numbers. They've all got almost exactly the same on IMDb. They're all like 6.9, 7.1, basically 4 stars. None of
Yeah,
these films get close. The closest to sneaking up towards 5 stars is maybe The Fugitive of these films, but most of them are just like they're just good movies, 4 star, solid movies. They make around 200-300 million. Everybody likes them. Very few people truly love them, and that's absolutely fine.
yeah. It's a three for me. It's middle of the road. There's good things about it.
And then I say all that, it's a bang on 4, blah blah blah. I go, yep, it's a 3. It's a 3.
It's middle of the road. It does good things. It has bad things. It makes you laugh places you shouldn't be laughing. It makes you
Mhm.
hold your like that. You can't uh, give the ending too much credit. Like it's yeah. It's
Yeah,
but in regards to recommendations, yeah. If you want to see Die
yeah, yeah.
Hard on a this or Die Hard on a that, then I
This
would
is one of the
highly
better
recommend it.
ones.
Yeah.
It's weird because this rarely comes up in that conversation, but it is one of the better diehards on something. And I know I said 4 stars, and I am going to stick with that, but I totally get the 3 stars because the last 20 minutes is arguably a 2 star finale. Like
Mm.
it really does go off the rails a little bit, but the rest of the film I think is very good. So 3, 4, but I think we're both landing on the same thing. It's just like, yeah, it's totally rewatchable. You can totally go back and enjoy it. Like, I'd be amazed if anyone came back and said, like, if someone's like, oh, I love that film, I would get it if they liked it more than us, especially if they could put up with the finale. I would be amazed if anyone came back and said, I hate Air Force One. I'd be like,
Yeah.
really? Fucking, like, it's just a likable film in the, like you said, 3, 4 star range. So, yeah, that's the important thing. Totally recommendable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, well, that's been 1997's Air Force One. So, what are we covering next week?
So when in the year 2000, when I was 17, I want to say I was on holiday in Spain with a bunch of college lads, and I destroyed.
Where the fuck is this going?
Yes, wait. I destroyed my leg. I shattered my kneecap and fractured my leg top to bottom. I have a lovely scar to prove
Mhm.
it nearly 20 years later, or over
He
20 years
does. He
later.
does. I've seen the scar. It's quite
Yeah.
impressive.
Uh, I spent 3 weeks in hospital in Spain. Then I got flown back and had to spend a week in hospital in Cardiff. Then I had to go to Swansea to have skin graft. So I spent a lot of times watching films. Now I don't know if you remember if you spent any time in a Cardiff hospital in 2000, but they used to
Nope.
have
Luckily.
the TVs attached to your bed where you
Mhm,
could buy
mhm.
7-day passes for like Sky One and Sky Movies and things like this.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah.
Anytime I ever think of this film, I always think fondly to the time I destroyed my leg. So we're gonna watch Gladiator.
Oh, well, I wasn't expecting that at all.
We're not watching that Gladiator.
Oh, God. I
We are
was going to
watching.
say, I seem to recall you saying you weren't a big fan of Ridley Scott's Gladiator,
No,
the
that's
obvious
why we're
choice when
not
somebody
watching
says
that.
2000s Gladiator.
We are watching the better Gladiator,
Oh.
1992, directed by Rowdy Herrington, who directed Roadhouse,
Mhm.
starring James Marshall from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Cuba Gooding Jr., Brian Dennehy about underground boxing.
Wowzers. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to assume there are going to be other fans out there, but Jesus, wet, that is a deep cut. And I can bizarrely, I can see the poster. I am very much aware of this film,
Two
despite
very
the fact that when
sweaty
you
men.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I still, when I thought of like Gladiator in the 2000s, like, oh, well, this will be a nice surprise. I'll watch Ridley Scott's Gladiator, a classic of the era, dare I say. And with the sequel coming up, why wouldn't we? No, we're doing the Gladiator.
Yeah. The
Fair
better one,
enough.
in my opinion.
I mean, can it even be found? Where does one go to watch
It's
Gladiator?
I checked before we did this. It's on Amazon Prime for us in the UK.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Gladiator 1992. Well, that is going to. Well, I can say I've never watched. God, they do look sweaty on the poster, don't they? But it's got so reviews from critics. That's probably being quite kind. But
Yeah.
it does have a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, so
Yes.
people like this film.
I
And
know
I like
what.
I like Cuba Gooding Jr. I like boxing. I like boxing movies. So fuck it. And I'm not sure about James Marshall. I think there's a reason he didn't have a big career. I was never convinced he was necessarily great. And I love Twin Peaks. He was a strange screen presence in that show, but it's a strange show, so I don't want to
I
judge him
always
on that.
remember
So
he did another film, right? I think it was called Down. It was like 2001 about a killer about a killer lift.
yeah,
Yeah, with what was the name? Naomi. What was her name? Uh you'll know as soon as I
see,
say her name.
I'm
Jesus
just looking at the
Christ.
rest of the cast. Yeah, you mentioned. Sorry.
Naomi Watts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Michael Ironside. It's about a
Oh,
lift
that's
that
a
gets
weird cast.
possessed and starts killing people.
I'm all for it. I see. I'm looking at the cast of this film now. I'm like, Robert Loggia's in it, Brian
Yeah,
Dennehy. I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, there's
Oh,
something to work
Robert
with.
Loggia he plays
Yeah.
Papa Doc. He could be your pappy.
But oh my god, I keep trying to talk myself into this film, and then you say something. I'm like, oh, I'm not so sure now. But anyway, we're doing 1992's Gladiator. I did not see. Right, if I had had a million guesses after your little story about breaking your leg in Spain, how long would it have fucking taken me to land on 1992's Gladiator?
Yeah,
Jesus
never would
Christ.
have happened.
And
Sorry, he played
yeah, an
Pappy
interesting
Jack.
choice.
Pappy
Happy
Jack,
Jack.
not Papa
This
Doc.
this will
Papa
be one
Doc
of those
was
films though, where we put this online and we find out that loads of people have really fond memories of this film. So
yeah.
as I said, I remember it being a thing. I haven't seen it, so I don't want to be like too judgmental. And I like some of the actors involved. So let's give it a go. So yeah, this has been 1997's Air Force One. Do join us next week for 1992's Gladiator, apparently. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
Just apologies for the lateness in this one. Illness on my part, unfortunately. I just could not speak last week. So we are a week
Yeah, I heard
behind. We
him.
hope you
In
enjoyed.
fairness to him, he tried to. He was like, "Oh, maybe we could do this." I heard him. He sounded like shit. It wouldn't have worked.
So we hope you enjoyed the re-listen of what did we do last week? What did we release?
Episode 3, because of the whole
Episode
it was the
3.
25th anniversary of the prequel starting. But I thought, rather than do episode 1, like the obvious choice would be, I was like, just re-release episode 3 because at least you like that film a little bit more.
I mean, if we're nothing in this podcast, we like to swerve, should we say?
We certainly do, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's Gladiator. So yeah, I've been Liam. He has been Rob. You've been listening to Hey Guys podcast, and we'll see you next week. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!